Before we begin the 75th round of the Losers Bracket, I just wanted to say thank you. We have made it to round 75, and all of your feedback, your comments, your downloads, they're deeply appreciated. And this particular time in esports is probably one of the most exciting times ever. As most of you know, at BlizzCon this year in October, the GSL will be holding its finals. There's so much amazing stuff going on, and we are just happy and honored to be here and serve the greater competitive gaming community. Want to say thank you again. I hope that some of you will get an opportunity to see the GSL finals live in Anaheim in October, because this is truly a first. And with that being said, let's start the 75th round of the Losers Bracket.
It's our milestone 75th episode, and we're really glad that you're joining us here today. Thank you all so much for tuning into the Losers Bracket. And man, we've got a ton of news and a really cool interview. You could also say it's a milestone in competitive gaming as well, this interview that we're doing later on. Please stay tuned for that. But man, this week has been packed, chock full of news. And first things first, I want to talk about the end of the first season of the North American Star League that just happened this past week. NASL first season, Puma ended up winning, defeating MC in the finals in an amazing 7-game series, taking it home 4-3, winning $50,000. Pretty incredible. I have to say, really cool series. But at the same time, and I hate to sound negative about this, there were a couple of issues that did happen with the NASL finals. Jerry, I know you got a chance to check it out. What did you think?
Well, first of all, I think, congratulations to Puma. I mean, we can talk about in great detail. It was a technically substandard event, to be honest. I think at least culminated in some great, Starcraft. I mean, I thought at the moment that MC came back from that 2-0 deficit, I really felt like, wow. Because personally, I really thought MC was going to take this. I mean, there were a lot of people who became fans of Puma during this, and he played fantastic. But I don't know. I mean, I thought it was going to be MC, and it ended up a phenomenal final. I mean, at the end of the day, we did get to see great StarCraft, and that does count for something.
Unfortunately, that great StarCraft was few and far between in my mind, and yet again, I might sound a little critical here, but when it's an hour to 2 hours between each match, that's a little bit tough, especially when we become accustomed to the MLG style of consistent gameplay throughout a weekend. So I was a little disappointed there. Additionally, things like mic issues where, let's say, the left speaker was completely full of audio but the right wasn't, or how the screen was sometimes cut off from the projectors in the stadium. I mean, these are things that it should be production 101 almost. I'm kind of surprised at how shoddy some of the production value looked. Hopefully, if there is a Season 2 of NASL, we can see these issues corrected.
Well, I mean, somebody gave up money to have this whole thing happen, so do you give somebody who's doing this for the first time a break? I mean, I don't know. I guess we'll know the next event. I mean, I guess we could keep picking on this and sort of beat up on a dead horse, but at the end of the day, I think everybody knows from a production standpoint, it certainly wasn't up to par. I do think, though, it was a great weekend for some of the best tweets ever. I think the comments about NASL were entertaining. And overall, I was pretty happy with, one, the community's critique. So, I mean, it's not like NASL's unaware of its problems. I mean, one One great tweet somebody had was to Day 9, said, "Hey, Day 9, can you move that mic away from you so I can read your lips?" I mean, that was one of my favorite comments of all time. I thought the community was really entertaining. So I guess misery and joy's company alive. I think pretty much anybody watching was pretty unsatisfied. But at the end of the day, they kind of struggled through it.
And how can we complain when this much prize money is being thrown into StarCraft 2? Additionally, when it comes to StarCraft 2, I think we'd be amiss if we didn't talk about the fact that more Koreans have officially been announced for coming to Anaheim, MLG Anaheim, very close, coming up at the end of the month. We do have, in addition to Slayers MMA and Slayers Boxer, 2 more players from the GSL Exchange that will be joining them. MVP Dong Regu and then also I Am MVP will be joining the fray at MLG Anaheim. Additionally, 3 more Korean players will be coming over from South Korea to play through the open bracket. Choya Foyu, Slayers Alicia, and Slayers Ganzi will all be joining the open bracket. This is shaping up to be one hell of a tournament.
Well, guys, I really think with this new mix of Korean players coming in, Americans are going to have to step up their game. You have Koreans coming in that are global talent, and America, I feel, is still emerging. We want to show that we can compete on the world stage, but now is the time for us to show that we can.
I mean, the bottom line is everybody wants to see the best play. I mean, that's what this is all about. And I think Major League Gaming is doing a really good job of making sure that we have the best coming here. So what is there not to love, I guess, at the end of the day? I'm glad they made the announcement of who the other players are going to be. I think it says a lot for where we have to go. But like anything, getting the Koreans here is so important to making American StarCraft better that we all benefit. And again, the quality of the show we're going to get is going to be chocked full of great players. So the MLG stream will be good. I mean, we won't end up with that NASL problem where when you add up all the stream time, you get more break than actual gaming or content. Here, I think we're going to have a weekend that's going to be chock full of good content. We've got top talent, and we've got top talent, some of it coming through the open amateur bracket. So again, there are definitely matches to watch throughout the whole event, not just near the end. So all in all, Anaheim is going to be a great event. And once again, I think Major League Gaming has done a great job, and American StarCraft and American players are going to benefit from this GSL MLG exchange.
Couldn't agree with you more, Jerry. And I definitely think for the competitive StarCraft scene, one of the most exciting things in Anaheim is going to be, I mean, if you've checked out the pools, MLG has released the pool information, which players are going to be in what pools at Anaheim. Pool A is just like the pool of death from what I've seen. Naniwa, Hey Pro, Little One, Huck, and MVP Dong Regu are all in the same pool. Talk about a tough situation if you have to try to pick a winner in that pool. Wow. I am stoked to watch this in just a few weeks. I am thrilled to see all these Koreans coming over. Americans are going to have to step up their game. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and this is also a really good time for people to buy that MLG pass. This is what you want it for. You want to be able to watch the stream in the highest quality, and that's what we're all going to be doing that weekend. So come join us, you know.
Speaking of joining us, we actually might have a few more titles joining the MLG circuit in the upcoming year. MLG Sundance recently tweeted that Gears of War 3 has been confirmed in some capacity for use in 2012. Really awesome news for the Gears of War community. Additionally, League of Legends will be joining the fray this year at MLG Raleigh. This means that we will see both Mortal Kombat and League of Legends at Raleigh. And with Epic right around the corner, could we possibly see 6 different titles at MLG Raleigh?
Well, as I've always said, that's what everything points to. PlayStation 3, Mortal Kombat 9, obviously, as well as Call of Duty. Halo and Gears on the 360, League of Legends, and StarCraft on the PC. I think the some capacity part of it is very important because I think we should not believe that at least for League of Legends and Gears of War that it's going to be on the circuit the same way Halo and StarCraft are. I think at a minimum, what we can see is what was done before for Call of Duty with the PCLs, where you have a season of PCLs, and then at the end of that season, you bring the top teams in for the finals, like the top 8. What I'm about to say may piss off some people, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think Major League Gaming should do that for all its games from this time forward. I think it would benefit the league to have a first season where they actually do that kind of analysis of the game, the community, develop that relationship with the publisher. By playing it online a lot, making sure the community's active, is streaming, is hungry, and then judging the attendance they get for those games at just one event, everybody gets something to benefit. Now, as a person who would love to see Gears of War at every event next year, let me make that clear. As a fan, I want to see Gears of War at every event. As a business guy, though, as somebody who thinks about it, there is something to be said about saying, you know what, this first year, we're going to do PCLs, we're going to invite the top 8 Gears of War teams to the finals, and we'll see what the community does and how they react and how they engage with the title. Also gives them time to engage with the developer, to see how responsive they are to some of the feedback that comes from the community that MLG can package and feed to the developer. That model, to me, makes a lot of sense moving forward. So is it something that they will do? I don't know. Again, the fan in me wants Gears of War there at every stop. Another part of me says, you know what, maybe as we move forward, you have to earn that spot, meaning maybe Call of Duty, won't be permanent. But I believe right now that there is a lot of good effort there. And again, with Blizzard and Activision, you have great partners. So I would be a betting man that Call of Duty is going to remain on the circuit in its current form for 2012. For the fighting community out there, Mortal Kombat, that is a lot going to be based on streams. How many people are going to watch those streams? So I think there's a great website out there, testyourmight.com. There are other, obviously, fighting community websites. These sites are the places where MLG is going to need to advertise those streams and get the word out there so other people are aware. Now, for League of Legends, which you guys mentioned, I think that community already generates really strong stream numbers. Plus, you're talking about a 5-man team in a game where roster changes are frequent. I'm not sure I would ever want League of Legends on the MLG Pro Circuit. I think the game would be best if it was online with qualifiers, with support, and then, again, you fly the top 8 teams out to a finals, and they have a showdown there. That's my sort of a thought on it, but, we'll see what Major League Gaming does.
Of course, MLG is already trying a different format with Mortal Kombat at MLG Raleigh, where there are qualifiers online through game battles, and the top 8 there are automatically entered into a championship bracket the Sunday of MLG Raleigh. Additionally, there's going to be an open walk-up-and-play tournament there where people can come in and still try to qualify for that championship bracket. That's another possibility that we could see next year on the circuit. Not necessarily as a full-on title, but something that's more of a side event for competitors that can walk up and play. Not necessarily something that you have to buy a ticket, a team pass to be able to get into and compete. Something everyone can do in between spectating matches, go play. The pros still have a chance to come out and compete in these games, but it gives everyone a chance to have some fun too. I like the idea. Have a couple extra titles around. This could be a huge shift and possibly could help out with spectator engagement as well at future MLG events.
Yes, and I think it is also good to get a lot of that cross-pollination where different communities get a chance to interact. So all of that is good. It's the kind of environment Major League Gaming should have at its events, and hopefully anybody out in Raleigh will definitely take advantage of the opportunity to play some Mortal Kombat.
But starting soon, according to Sony, you might not have the chance to play online anymore with certain games unless you buy a new pass that they're coming out with. Jerry, have you heard about this new PSN pass that's on the way? It's going to come out with Resistance 3. What are your thoughts?
I get it. I get that a lot of companies are making money on that secondary resale market. I get that EA and other companies are going to... I think it's inevitable. That's the sad part of this. Everybody wants to get in on the action. Will it affect me as a person who buys games? I don't ever buy used games. I get a pass, I'll play my multiplayer. It's not going to have a big impact on people like me. And I do understand the business side of milking it for every dime it's worth, which is what it is. But another part of me just shakes my head going, wow, how much money do you really need to make?
For those that do not know what the PSN Pass is, when you buy a new title on the PlayStation, starting with Resistance 3 and then certain other titles that have online multiplayer, you'll be given a certain code that you have to put in to gain access to playing multiplayer online. If you end up lending that game to a friend or selling the game back and someone else buys it used, anybody else that takes this game and plays it on their PlayStation 3 will have to buy a separate PlayStation Network Pass to play this game online. This means that even if you want to let a friend try it out, see if they like it, they're going to have to shell out some money to be able to play online. I understand yet again why Sony's doing it as well, but at the same time, the gamer in me shakes my head and thinks, God, how much more are they going to be nickel and diming us for here in the future?
To be fair, though, I mean, they're not really nickel and diming the original purchaser. It's just what happens to the game after I don't want it anymore.
I don't think anyone here should be really surprised that this is even happening because talk of this taking place surfaced back in August of last year. A website known as Games Industry interviewed Sony Computer Entertainment Europe boss Andrew House about this, and he said that they were definitely exploring the possibility. So, I'm not at all surprised it's even happening. THQ started this last year with UFC Undisputed 2010, and several other games have taken the same path, including Mortal Kombat. The way I see it, it was simply a matter of time, so I'm not the least bit surprised.
But it's almost like paying the dealer of a car when you buy it used. Could you imagine if you had to pay Ford when you bought a used car off a lot? The whole idea, I mean, I understand making money, the used game market, GameStop's making a lot off it, Play and Trade's making a lot off the used games, and the developers aren't seeing that revenue. But at the same time, doesn't that kind of hurt the fan base in the end?
It would be nice if they announced what that money would be used for. Something positive, as a competitive gamer, I'd love to see them support maybe Major League Gaming or other events more, or do something for charity, or in some ways explain, what this extra money is going to be used for, because the gaming industry is not known for having great working conditions or working hours or work-life balance. A lot of people, select people, make a lot of money, and I think there's a lot of taking advantage of people. And now this sort of push to basically nudge out retailers in the used gaming market, I don't know. But, I mean, it's a decision they're going to make, and we will see whether or not that's successful or not.
It's been a long road these last 75 episodes, and we really want to thank you, the fans, for helping us reach this milestone. Now, as a community, VVV Gaming has created a new division that we would like to think is a little bit of a milestone in and of itself. As an organization, we have actually just created a Disabled Gamers division, and with us here today for a really special interview is the manager of this new division, VVV Spectral, Jacob Wacker. Jacob, thank you so much for joining us here on the Losers Bracket this week. How are you doing, buddy?
Doing great, man. Doing really good.
Awesome. We're really glad to have you. Please, for those that do not know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who you are, what you do, what games you play, all that.
All right. Well, I'm a paralyzed quadriplegic, and for those who don't know, I have a spinal cord injury which occurred when I broke my neck in 2007. It impairs me pretty much from my collarbone down and my fingers. So I'm a pretty unique gamer in that sense that I play without any fingers. Pretty much got into gaming right after I was paralyzed, wanting to get back into playing World of Warcraft. And ever since then, I've been pushing myself as a gamer and trying to figure out how to become more competitive in that aspect.
Spectral, I would like to give everybody a chance to hear the story that you told me, because I think I know myself as someone who doesn't have anyone really close in my family that is disabled or has experienced a spinal cord injury. tell us a little bit about how the accident happened, because for you especially, knowing your story, you had a very complicated road to recovery, and I think it's telling about your perseverance, so to speak, that you are here and obviously doing much better. If you don't mind sharing that story.
No, I don't at all. Well, it started out in 2007. I was at the end of my church camp stay, and I was going to go and make up with a girl, be like, oh, I'm sorry. And I ended up diving into a lake, and I broke my neck in 4 spots. My fifth and sixth vertebrae, which you can count from the top of your head down. So it's pretty close. So what happened in that moment of breaking your neck is you become paralyzed because the bones around your spinal cord are not supporting your spinal cord. So pretty much like whiplash. The thing about the nervous system is when it gets bruised or gets damaged in any way, shape, or form, it has almost a 0% chance of recovery because nervous cells do not regrow, kind of like if you were to drink too much. You lose your brain cells, that's what you got. So having bruising my spinal cord, it pretty much left me instantaneously paralyzed in the water, which I ended up holding my breath for about 2 minutes and drowning, was resuscitated by CPR. I was in a different state. I live in Oregon, and this was in California. So I ended up being life flighted probably 2.5 hours to the hospital, and ended up contracting pneumonia and one of the deadliest staph infections you can contract inside of a hospital, which inevitably made me drop 65 pounds in less than a month, and putting me in a coma, and also pretty much on a ventilator. Well, I was on a ventilator.
So Jacob, at this time, this is about 1 month after the injury.
Yeah.
And in short, to be honest, you didn't get any breaks in that first month.
No, I didn't get any breaks in that first month. At the end of the first month, I was still in intensive care fighting something that was completely irrelevant to breaking my neck, other than I couldn't cough. I think that was like the main issue. But recovery was very hard, losing a lot of muscles. So, getting back into gaming was a motivation in itself. I was very weak. I could barely even move my arms to even push the W key. I remember just having my left arm propped up over the W key was enough work to make it go numb, but I wanted to play so bad. So, eventually I ended up becoming the guy who always stayed at, stables in, Arathi Basin, to becoming an 1800 rated priest in 2v2 arenas in roughly about a year and a half of gaming. So fighting multiple infections, I think just being paralyzed, comes with not feeling your body and having to stick things into it, that aren't necessarily there, like a catheter, so to speak. So it's definitely, an ongoing battle that, you would never really foresee, and not being able to move causing a lot of problems, but it really does. So gaming is more than just a competitive aspect for me. It's definitely an outlet for, escape almost. And it comes into where I'm playing, and then I'm starting to wanting to compete, and I'm beating somebody, and I'm having motivation to keep trying and do harder, and then eventually, you're doing the best that you could possibly do for what you got, and competing at a pretty high level that's considered, above normal for even somebody who can move their fingers and is fully able, so to speak, I guess.
Now, Spectral, for those who may not know, my only familiarity with some sort of system to gauge the degree to which you're impaired comes from the documentary Murder Ball, where, for those who don't know what Murder Ball is, it's a documentary about people who basically play a form of rugby in wheelchairs, and there's different ratings based on your mobility. And Spectral, in your particular case, I know you mentioned you don't really have finger movement, but you do have movement of your wrist. Can you kind of talk a little bit about what the different levels, because obviously the higher up your spinal cord injury, meaning closer to the brain, generally the less function you have. Can you talk a little bit about the dynamics of that?
All right, yeah, it's actually incredibly touch and go as far as it goes for being disabled. But in Murder Ball, there's a point system that's rated from 1 to 5, I think. It could be higher, it could be like 1 less, maybe 1 to 4. But it generally goes off of how much movement you have. So say if I were to break my one vertebrae, so the vertebrae right next to my neck, that would cut off pretty much everything. So including my breathing, I would not be able to control my chest. So say one vertebrae down, I might be able to breathe. Another vertebrae down, I might be able to move my shoulders. So the farther you go down, the more movement you have, so to speak. So being a 5-6 vertebrae, I'm able to move my biceps. I'm able to pull my wrists back, which is a big function for people who can't move their fingers. And I'm able to move my shoulders fully. So I have a lot of movement that, wouldn't be necessarily expected, but it's there. So the rating system comes from 1 being the like lesser movement. So say if I were to broke my 4th vertebrae, that would be a 1 rating. Having less strength in your biceps and not having triceps. So there is a big deal in muscle functions in your arm. How it relates to gaming is, and I'm trying to establish more of a physical function rating for people who are handicapped or gaming. Since gaming isn't necessarily a function of the lower extremities, it's based off of a system of 1 through 10 since you have 10 fingers. So on your 2 extremities, how many fingers or functions are you able to execute at one time, say if you were to put it down? Now, since I'm only able to move my 2 arms and no fingers, I would be a 2. Somebody who is able to move 2 fingers on one hand and 1 finger on the other, and that does happen, would be labeled a 3, if that makes any sense. So we're going to be probably pitching people that are roughly around the same level of injury and rating against one another, since all injuries are not the same and all disabilities are not the same. So you have to kind of create a standardized physical function, so to speak, rating.
Yeah, I think what you bring up there is very important. What I found really exciting about learning about this was that as someone, again, as a lay person who doesn't have specialized knowledge in this area, realizing that, wait, there are a lot of nuances, and something you just mentioned, when you get into spinal cord injuries, you might have someone who has 3 fingers on one hand that have movement, 1 finger on the other. Some people may only have, 3 fingers on one hand, and maybe they can move their wrist on the other hand.
Right, and then completely paralyzed on the other.
Absolutely. And what we want to do is be sure that we establish a process by which we can evaluate players and really do something very special in allowing them to compete. Now, Spectral, something else I found really interesting, that is the value of competitive gaming and competing to someone with a disability. Now, for yourself, you talked a little bit earlier about how it was important for you to compete. And now, thankfully, you have been competing for a while. How would you say today, for you personally, compares to, say, maybe a year ago? Where are you today competitively, and how do you feel about where you're at competitively?
Well, in comparison to a year ago, I'm probably coming up in a couple months buying Starcraft, and I never even thought I would get out of bronze division, so to speak, or even get up to like the top 50 in the bronze division. I think I actually lost my first 40 out of 50 games playing Starcraft, and that's a no joke right there. So, I mean, as far as it goes as a gamer, I've evolved so much to the point of where if the leagues weren't locked right now, I think I would be platinum, which I never even considered I would even be high, like in silver. So competitively, I've just continuously evolved, and I guess more so understanding my disability and trying to play around it is a very, very key point, and strategizing around it so it's much easier for me to play, I guess. Does it make any sense?
No, absolutely. I mean, by understanding your disability, you understand what aspects of the game are more challenging for you, or you would play at a disadvantage. Let me ask this question. Your APM compared to someone who isn't disabled, or your ability to micro in certain situations. What are some of the situations you find more challenging? And just out of curiosity, what is your average APM?
Well, the situations that I used to find the most challenging were probably being able to macro while focusing my units in a certain direction. So let's just say I got muta harassed, pulling all my SCVs off the line, bringing the Marines back, being able to bring the SCVs back, and remaking those units that I lost. Sometimes I slip on. So it's pretty much my multitasking. I could cheese you every game and it would be much easier for me, but it's pretty much when I get into the multitasking stages that it gets pretty difficult to focus on two different things simultaneously. But I'm getting much better at it. As far as my APM goes, I've actually gotten a lower APM the longer I've been playing StarCraft. I looked at my APM and it was 25, but when I started playing this game, it was 40. So I think I'm starting to just slow down and be more precise and not letting things make me overreact. So therefore, I'm becoming a lot better player. In comparison to some other quadriplegics, which I've actually been able and been lucky enough to play with, I have way better micro than them. They've got better macro than me. So it's very interesting to kind of have somebody to shape up your strengths and weaknesses to be like, oh, wait, I'm microing my units more than he is, and that's how I'm winning the battles. And he's winning the battles by making more units. So it's very interesting to look at that aspect. So I think APM doesn't really matter, Jerry, to be quite honest. I think it's the functions and the actions you take, how calculated they are.
I would not disagree with you, sir. Accuracy is key. That's why I think effective APM is a very important term when you start to talk about APM. But I think in this particular case, you're absolutely right. With different players are obviously going to have different strengths. And I think what's also interesting to me is knowing that those players who will be competing ideally will be seeing their own skills develop and grow. And I look forward to meeting some of them. With that being said, why don't you talk a little bit about your vision for the disabled gamers division here in VV Gaming? You being the manager, I think a lot of credit goes to you for pushing this idea, and I think it's important for you to share your vision for the division with our audience.
Well, it starts off with the whole concept of competing. Everybody has some sort of outlet to challenge themselves on some sort of level, and being able to gauge whether they're good or not, whether it be like, hey, I can pop a wheelie and ride a bike, is something we all do without really even trying. So having disables compete, I think, is more natural than I think we even recognize. We spend a lot of time doing this more as a free time and don't even really necessarily think of it as a skill, but eventually it becomes one. So as far as having a vision for this disabled gamers division, I have high hopes of having the best disabled gamers compete against one another. I get lots of feedback saying how interesting it is that I play with two attachments to my hand and a mouse strapped to my arm. As weird as it is, and I'm able to play at the level that I am, but having two people playing with such a handicap and competing at such a high level is pretty interesting to the average person who doesn't have time to really spend 3-4 hours a day for a week to get down a build, against every other matchup. So it's very interesting to the average person to see somebody compete at a pretty moderately good competitive level and do it with a very extreme disability.
I agree, because when we hosted your last match after Wednesday Night Starcraft, we had over 55% of the viewership remain on to see that, and it was unannounced. We didn't tell anyone it is. They were in the stream. We just said, hey, stick around. We're going to have two disabled gamers play. And I thought the response from the people in the stream was really, really positive. So, I think hopefully this will bring some level of awareness to disabled gamers. as well as do what your vision is, which is really giving those gamers the opportunity to do something many of us take for granted, which is to challenge ourselves and compete against other human beings.
Yeah. So as far as the reaction goes for Wednesday Night Starcraft, Jerry, when I logged on the next day and popped it up, I almost pulled the same amount of viewers the very next morning. I went back and looked at the VODs and pulled so many views. It was incredible. I think I got up to probably 172 viewers just watching me solo. So the reaction from the Wednesday Night Starcraft echoed pretty good into the next day, and I was really happy with it also.
Jacob, as we're building this disabled gamers division, I'm sure we have quite a few rather interesting and special people applying for positions in our community. Can you possibly talk about some of these players, who they are, what games they play, and what makes their unique play style so much different than what we would be used to?
Yes, I would love to. Well, let's start off with Random Ranger, the guy I'm going to be facing in the next show match. He's a quadriplegic from Australia, and I ended up running through him through one of the forums. He broke his neck 15 years ago, and the guy's been using keyboards and mice without any sort of adaptations or attachments for that long, so he plays just with his knuckles. So this guy is good. I mean, good. This guy beat me 9 times out of 17 times we played when I faced him in a macro game. So this guy's good. Then I also found a Call of Duty player who has MD, muscular dystrophy, and he is a really good gamer. He plays with just his pinky and his thumb because he's unable to open up his hand fully. So he's a really cool guy to check out. And the last gamer that I really want to talk about is Colorado. He's a Halo Reach player, and this guy modded his own controller. He took the 2 left and right triggers, put it on the front, wired in a clicker, and put it inside of a mouth guard so he could push it with his tongue so that he could multitask more. So he's able to move the joysticks and keep his target lined up while still able to fire the gun. So this guy's an innovator as far as it goes when it comes to breaking down barriers and just modding his controller to fit his disability. So I was incredibly impressed by this guy.
That is awesome. Now, Spectral, I want to tell you a story of something that happened last week. I had come to understand you competing on a competitive level, and when I first saw on Twitter that said you were a paralyzed quadriplegic playing Starcraft, I was like, really? So I clicked the link, took a look at it, and I'm thinking, my golly, this guy, paralyzed quadriplegic playing Starcraft 2 competitively. So I kind of watched some of the VODs, and I was truly impressed. And then I heard about the launch of the Disabled Gamers Division. And last Wednesday, I believe, I had gone to a local cell phone establishment to upgrade my cell phone contract, and I had some friends that worked over there, and they were familiar that I was a member of VV Gaming. And they said, "Hey, what's going on with VV Gaming?" I said, "We just launched a Disabled Gamers Division." And they said, "What's that?" And I had mentioned your name, Spectral, and I said, "We have a paralyzed quadriplegic competitive StarCraft player." And they said, "You're kidding." I said, "No, sir, I am not." I kind of went into detail of how you play StarCraft. There was a mother with children, all customers, almost everything in the store stopped, and they were all listening to how you play StarCraft, and people were just wanting to know details. They were like, "My goodness, this guy doesn't stop at anything. He just, he has a goal and he will meet it no matter what the disabilities that people were writing down the VV Gaming website down on a piece of paper. They were pulling up on their computer at their store, and they were just completely fascinated. So I'm really glad that you're taking a leadership role in all of this, because I think you're the best man for the job.
What a good endorsement that is, Smith. Thank you. I think Spectral has that effect on people when anybody gets to meet him. That reminds me, there is one more story I'd like you to share, and that is how you proposed to your girlfriend.
Thought you'd bring that up. It's pretty good, dude. So at MLG Dallas, I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to pose to my girlfriend on the first night I was there. I think she may have had an idea that I was going to do it, so I had to do it at a pristine moment. So before I went there, I packed this little bag that's more like a shaving kit, and I put a whole bunch of items in there that didn't make any sense. Like I put a tape measure in there, I put some floss in there, I put some, I don't know, I put nail clippers in there, and then I put the rain box in there. So what I did is I would have like a little bag that she wouldn't know what was in there. I had this idea that I wanted to record it too. So it started off that my girlfriend was about to go get some food or whatever, and I was like, "Hey, can you give me that bag?" And she's like, "What's in the bag?" And I was like, nothing. She's like, starts to open it. I was like, "No, let me do that." And she goes, "All right, open up the bag." And the bag was the shaving kit. I was like, "Okay, so if you want me to open up this bag, you should film it." She laughed at me. She thought it'd just be funny, and so she proceeded to film it. I started pulling out the items one by one. She's sitting there laughing at me, making fun of me, and then I was like, "Hey, I need this one last thing in this bag," and I slipped the rain box out into my armpit, and you can see it in the video. And she goes to open up the bag, and she's looking inside this bag, and you can see all this in the video. And I opened up the ring, and I had it on my chest. So when she set down the bag and wasn't looking on it, I had the ring open, and I proposed. And she was completely shocked, and like almost didn't have anything to say other than yes. But it was pretty cute, and definitely a moment I'll never forget. Convincing my girlfriend to film her own proposal was quite a feat.
You, sir, are an inspiration to so many people, and I want to thank you for being on the Losers Bracket, and I look forward to working with you to build this Disabled Gamers division. Thank you so much for being on the Losers Bracket.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Wow, Jacob really is an inspiration. I mean, I actually had the chance to meet him back at MLG Dallas earlier this year, and that man, he just has a spark about him. Absolutely incredible soul. I'm so glad that we're getting the chance to work with him, and this new Disabled Gamers division is just, it's absolutely groundbreaking. I'm really happy that you threw this together, Jerry. Truly awesome idea.
Yeah, Jason, I mean, a lot of the credit goes to who Jacob is as a player and a person. Him being in VV Gaming and being so passionate about VVV and our community, and then, you know, just in really trying to help him with equipment, you know, trying to see if there are ways that he can work with hardware designers to get the kind of equipment that would help him play better. He just sort of hatched this idea, and I said, you know, myself being a disabled veteran myself, not anywhere in the category of someone who's quadriplegic or anything like that, but having, you know, seen people who have come back from situations in the military where they unfortunately have been injured, spinal cord, brain injuries. It's something I've always wanted to do. I have a good friend of mine who works in the VA system who helps a lot of veterans that come back from war. And I'd like to grow this division and get it out there and let those who, I mean, so many people game. I mean, veterans, military people game. And when tragedy strikes and somebody finds themselves disabled, you know, this is one opportunity for them to get, hopefully, a community and a space to compete if that's their passion.
Truly inspiring, never letting anything stand in their way. Absolutely awesome story, and I really look forward to seeing the growth of our new Disabled Gamers division. While we're talking about growth, I want to thank the community for helping us continue to grow as a podcast, now 75 episodes deep. Once again, thank you so much for all your constant feedback and support, helping us continue on this journey to bring you news, interviews, and all the things that are currently relevant in the world of competitive gaming. Thank you so much. Big thanks to VV sponsors, SteelSeries, GamerGrub, Control Freak, MusicSkins.com, and Custom Ink. Your products, your support, your services, we appreciate all of them. Thank you so much. Be sure to stop by our podcast homepage. The website is vvgaming.podbean.com. You can also subscribe to us over on iTunes. Just search for VV Gaming. That way you can check out our show, The Losers Bracket, right there on iTunes. You can email us at thelosersbracket@vvv-gaming.com if you have any questions, comments, concerns. You can also follow us over on Twitter. There we are simply known as Losers Bracket. Once again, thank you so much for following the show, giving us your feedback, constantly supporting us. We really appreciate it. And here's to another 75 episodes.
I want to give a shout out to Spectral. I want to thank him for coming on and for always reminding us that, impossible is nothing. There's nothing in this world that you cannot do if you want it bad enough.
I want to give a big shout out this week to Dark Dante, who, as a member of VV staff, has coded our new team pages and has coded our new VVV Gaming Live, which is going to include all of our streams from all of our players in one convenient location. Thank you so much for your time, Ron, and everything you're doing, and I think we're all going to be better because of your contribution. And to all of those listeners out there, thank you. As Jason said, we do this for you. We need the feedback. We appreciate the feedback. And we'll see you next week on round 76 of the Losers Bracket.
Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend.